Greetings, everyone. I'm excited to welcome Matt Perrott, co-founder and CEO of BuildPass. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Hey, great to have you here. We're just talking a little pre-show, a little skiing. So interesting in Denver, all that stuff, but we'll get into that. But yeah, let's kick this off. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I am a software engineer by trade. I did a bit of, or had a life in commerce before that. I've done a range of different things, but I mean, outside of work, I do like to get up to the snow. Being from Australia, it's not great, not as good as over in Denver. But yeah, I'd like to stay active outside of work. And yeah, in the workplace, I'm the co-founder and CEO at BuildPass, which has been around for a few years now.
Okay, perfect. So software engineer by trade. Maybe we'll talk a little bit skiing, we'll see. But yeah, tell us what products and or services BuildPass offers.
Yeah, so we have basically built an AI-powered operating system to run a construction site. What that means in practice is we have software that a general contractor can roll out on their construction site, and it manages all the workflows. So everything from the health and safety to the quality assurance, document management, communication between all of the stakeholders on a construction project, we can run through our platform, and we use AI to power that.
Interesting. So for general contractors for that construction site, and tell us, is this, I assume, like commercial construction then?
It's actually both. So
Okay.
I might give you a bit of context on my
Mhm.
background and my business partner. We came from consumer software backgrounds. So I helped build realestate.com.au, which is a real estate listing platform. My business partner helped build Seek, a job listing platform. So we have a strong background in building software for the end consumer. And what we tried to do in construction is take a typical B2B model or platform and give it more of that consumer feel. Because one of the biggest things in construction and many other verticals is getting engagement with the platform. So the reason I mention that is it's not just for commercial sites. We actually run it on small residential sites, and we have our general contractors there also running their operations through it. And the key to allowing that to happen was just to make it super simple so that anyone, no matter their technical background, can use the software.
Interesting. Okay, so commercial and residential run that construction site. And tell us a little bit about your customer base right now. Is it local? Is it global?
Yeah, so we're all in Australia at the moment. We're about to launch in New Zealand, just over the ditch from us. But in December, so only in a few days now, we are launching in the US, which is really exciting. So we've got a couple of staff members based out of Austin, Texas, and they've been working really hard to line up our first customers. And hopefully we'll be going live in December this year. So the US is our biggest kind of strategic angle at the moment. It's a massive market, but it's not to say that we've saturated the Australian market. There's still a huge amount of opportunity here, and we're still going to call Australia home. That's where our product and engineering teams are going to live. But the US is a big strategic angle for us right now.
And is there any differences, geographic or country differences, as far as how construction sites are run? Or I assume like, labor laws, safety laws, probably different from country to country, and how advanced construction is with using software and technology. So what do you see there?
Yeah, so there's a few angles there. I'll talk to the regulations first. The regulations are different. So in Australia, we get a lot of our regulations from the UK. It's very similar, whereas the US is a completely different beast from a regulations point of view. One of the complications is how different it is state by state in the US. It truly does feel more like 50 countries than it does states. And I know everyone says that, but it's true. So the regulations differ. As far as construction in general, there's actually not too many differences. There's only so many ways to build a house or a commercial construction project, and the dynamic remains the same. You have a general contractor, lots of subcontractors that actually do the work. Then you've got all your workers below the subcontractors. So from that aspect, it's very similar in how the buildings actually get built. With regards to technology adoption, both the US and Australia have different levels of adoption in different areas. So for example, in say health and safety, the adoption of software is really strong in Australia compared to the US. But in the US, what we have found is people trialing new innovative solutions. So our AI platform has had great reception over in the US. So there are a few differences there as well.
And then as far as the general contractors, are we talking kind of mid-range, mid-market? Are you talking to those big global contractors? Where do you fit in there?
Yeah, so we target anyone from what we call SMB, small and medium-sized businesses, to mid-market. Now, in the US, mid-market means a different thing to Australia. Typically, our general contractors here, the larger ones, will have around 300 staff, turning over around $1 billion a year at the larger end. We do think that that's going to scale up. Our platform can support large businesses than that. So it's really anywhere between, say, 10 and 1,000 staff is where we can service.
Okay, 10 and 1,000 staff at those contractors, so SMB to mid-market. Yeah, and then let's talk some stats and figures. What year did you found BuildPass?
2021.
2021 founded, so about 3-ish years running right now and located in Australia, so headquarters in Australia?
Yeah, Melbourne, Australia.
Okay, Melbourne. And what's your current team size?
So we have 25 team locally, and then we've got 10 offshore, so about 35.
Okay, so about 35 total, 25 local, 10 offshore. And then anything you want to share around revenue ranges, ARR ranges?
Yeah, happy to. So I'll be doing conversions from Australian dollars to US on the fly. So I'll talk in US dollars. We're at about 1.5 million, growing 10% month on month. So a lot of that revenue has come in the last 12 months. We spent a lot of time building out the platform for the first couple of years, and it's really ramped up in the last 12 months. So our target is really just to keep that 10% up on month and keep growing that. As far as annual contract size, the average ACV is around $5,500 per year, but that does really range. And yeah, really high gross margins, 90% plus, high contribution margins as well, about 55%. So pretty healthy numbers.
Yeah, that's great. So about 1.5 million ARR, growing 10% month over month. And then are you signing with your customers? Are you signing annual contracts, multi-year contracts?
We have very minimal multi-year. It's mostly annual. And then we also have monthly as well in the SMB space. So 80% of our contracts are annual, 20% month to month. And then we only have a small fraction that are multi-year contracts.
Okay. And is this self-serve where they can log in, kind of figure out what they need to do, or is there a little services, onboarding, training to get your customers up and running?
It's very close to self-serve at the small end. So we still gate it with a demo because we're very particular about making sure we're bringing on the right people. But for our smaller customers, after they have done the demo, it's basically self-serve from there. They'll get given an account and they set themselves up. As we move up the plans, and we can talk to about pricing later if you like, but as we move up the plans, that includes a services component as there gets more complexity. And that's when we have more of a hands-on or white glove onboarding experience.
Okay, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And then now reaching out to these contractors, say you said, from 100 to 1,000 employees, tell us how are you finding your prospects? What's your go-to-market motion look like?
Yeah, so it's very sales-led as far as converting goes, but it's supported by a really strong marketing motion. So if you go on our social media channels, you see a lot of organic content that is driving good brand awareness. We mainly target LinkedIn and Instagram, but the motion outside of getting leads from our marketing channels organically and on our paid channels, we do have a really strong and repeatable outbound sales motion. So something that we identified quite early in building our sales team was that the construction industry operates on the phone. They all got far too many emails. There's not cut through there. So what we literally do is we have a lot of sales development reps that pick up the phone and have great conversations with people who are out on site or in the office. And that leads to a really efficient way of booking demos. And yeah, so our outbound sales motion is where the majority of our revenue gets driven from.
Okay, so interesting. So construction industry, like to pick up the phone, talk to them. And so you have an SDR team reaching out to your prospects. And then anything you want to share there, what makes a successful SDR? Is it the number of calls, the number of demos booked?
That is the metrics we have, but I wouldn't say that makes a successful SDR, because you could get an SDR that it gets in, makes a bunch of calls, books a bunch of demos that aren't high quality, and it's not going to be good for the business. So what we look for in an SDR is someone who is willing to be very conversational and to have a good conversation in the local market. So we have US SDRs, we have Australian SDRs. We think that's really important. One of the things that I'm really big on is ensuring that if you have an outbound sales motion and you pick up the phone, you've got to make sure it doesn't sound like it's coming from a call center. Because as soon as someone has that delay or they can hear sound in the background, they're like, this is a cold call. So we really try and cut through that, and we focus on that a lot. So this is going to get a little bit technical, but I think it's important. We don't use one of those VoIP systems. Everyone gets a phone, they get a real number, so there's no delay in the connection. We make sure that everyone has a really good sound system, so it doesn't sound like they're calling from a call center. And we then focus on having really good local conversation, and people have done their research. So if our SDRs are calling someone up, they'll know what projects they've done, they'll know what the size of their business is, and we can immediately cut through that sense of, oh, this is just someone trying to sell a product to me, to they're genuinely interested in our business. So I think that's probably been one of the biggest points of success in our outbound sales motion. And from that, it means that we have, once we get connected, we have a really high demo booking rate, and then we're converting those demos at a really high rate as well.
Yeah, interesting. Appreciate that insight. And so what would be considered a good demo booking rate once I land that, get that prospect on the line? What's a good conversion rate to book a demo?
Yeah, so these are basically our numbers. Our SDRs will only make about 40 calls a day. Our connection rate in Australia in the construction industry is really high. It's at 50%. It's a bit lower in the US. So they're having 20 good conversations per day. Out of that, they're booking 1 to 2 demos. So sort of a 5 to 10% demo booking rate. Of the demos that get booked, in our outbound motion, we're converting them to customers at 40%. So it's a really high conversion once they've done the demo. It's not only because the software is really good, but it's because the SDRs are very specific about who they're booking demos with, and they're doing a really good discovery call to make sure that that demo is actually worthwhile in doing.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, appreciate those stats. And so just to make sure I wrote that, so 40%, once you have that demo, 40% then close rate on those demos.
Correct.
Yeah, that sounds like a good number. I think that sounds like a super solid number. So yeah, appreciate that.
And what's interesting on that is as well is that the outbound number is actually higher. So when we get an inbound lead, it's actually sitting at about, I think it's 25 to 30% in conversion. So what that probably says, it was very counterintuitive to me. I would have thought that anyone who was landing on our website and booking in a demo as an inbound lead was going to be a higher rate of conversion. It probably means that our marketing hasn't quite been as refined as our sales motion has been. So that's just been an interesting learning for us.
Yeah, definitely. You would think people hitting your website, coming in, a lot of interest there, that would be a higher conversion. So
Totally.
interesting. Yeah, with outbound difference. So yeah, appreciate that insight. I love those stats. And then switching to the fundraising side, how much capital have you raised to date?
So again, in US dollars, we've raised $5.5 million. We've done that over 2 rounds, a pre-seed round and a seed round.
Okay, so 5.5 million raised, so pre-seed, then a seed round. And then when was the seed round raised?
The seed round was recently. We closed it about 2 months ago now.
Okay, so 2 months ago. So tell us a little bit about what was happening in the business. Were there any triggers or milestones that led to that seed round to say, we're ready for more capital?
Yeah. So I think the main trigger for us, and we did go out to market, we actually didn't need to raise money at that point. We had some healthy runway. We've been very capital efficient. The trigger was we had recently launched our AI platform. Now, a lot of software businesses are looking at AI. We do think that it's going to change basically every industry. So we've gone all in. The main thing for us was we didn't want to launch this new platform just in our home market. We think that there's a sort of a sliding window of opportunity over the next 6 to 12 months to become a leader in AI in all of the verticals. And we're going to become the leader in construction. And so we didn't want to do that just in our own market. We wanted to do that on the global stage. So that's why we went out to market to raise money. I think probably the milestones that we had hit that allowed us to raise money, if I had to pick the biggest one, it would be the repeatable sales motion. So the fact that even though we'd been focusing on go-to-market for the last 12 months, it was probably only within the last 3 months that we really felt like we nailed that motion. And that if we put more dollars into it, we could scale it up. It was repeatable and we know what the output's going to be. And yeah, the investors that we brought on, I think that really resonated with them.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. If you see that repeatable sales motion, fun to put a little more gas on the fire there. So in this journey, the fundraising journey and raising that pre-seed and seed, any lessons learned in that process that you'd like to pass on to other founders who may be considering their first raise or second raise?
Yeah, for sure. I think the critical thing is to build your network before you need to raise. You want to be tapping on warm leads and people that you have already had a connection with. So we see, after doing our pre-seed, we were continually chatting with investors, updating them. We weren't shy about who we would send our updates to, even if, we kind of knew that it would probably end up in the hands of competitors, because if you're spreading your updates widely, that just happens. That's how the industry works. But we developed some really good connections both in Australia and the US. So when it came time to do our raise, people knew our business. And then what we did is we set up a very specific process. It's almost like a sales process where you said, okay, we're at this date, we're going to open it up. Here's the conversations we're going to have. And the idea behind doing that, it's about building momentum. You want to create a little bit of competitive tension in it. Now, I learned a lesson the hard way that I probably created too much competitive tension, that it's blocked some investors out. So for example, we actually had a very early offer for an existing investor, and we used that to create some urgency. But some investors who we really wanted to chat with basically said, look, if you've already got an offer, we've just had our first conversation in a while, we're not going to be able to move that fast. And so what we've noticed about the market at the moment is, because investors can take their time and they've got lots of opportunities in front of them, you can't be too pushy unless you're the next hottest thing going around, which some people might be. I don't feel like our business was quite that. You don't want to be too pushy. So I think there's a really healthy balance of letting people know what your process looks like, who you're chatting with. The fact that we were chatting with some of the big US funds and they were interested, I think helped with some of the local funds as well. They saw that it wasn't just interest from them, but it was interest on the global stage. So being able to have lots of meetings booked in, to run a proper process, and just to build a bit of that healthy momentum, I think was really useful for us.
And with that tension, I appreciate that insight, because it can be hard lessons learned. So was it with offer in hand, and then you have other investors coming into the process? So was it just with those new investors, you really can't, it sounds like, push them too hard to try to catch up?
Totally. Yeah. It's like, I think it's just recognizing that you're not the only opportunity that is in front of an investor. And if you're saying, if you have your first conversation and I need a decision in 2 days, it's just not going to work. They're not going to be able to move that fast unless for some reason they really just love your company. So I think it's about being respectful of timelines and, being honest about, look, we do have this offer, but we're going to run a process. Here's our expected timeline. Here's who we've got interest from. I think just being really open and transparent there is the best approach.
And I guess you never know, those investors who maybe didn't fit the timeline, you never know what that next round, it could be potential investors as well, and not to burn that bridge in the current round. Yeah. So appreciate that insight. And Matt, at this stage of your business with BuildPass, is there a favorite number or metric that you're focused on to guide the business?
Yeah, look, we follow a lot. I think probably the biggest one, and I talked about capital efficiency before, but we look at the burn multiple really closely. We want to make sure that whatever we're burning is actually getting attributed to revenue that comes in. So we like to try and keep our burn multiple, so the amount we're burning divided by the ARR we're putting on each month, below 1 is what we go for, and it's hovering at around 0.7 at the moment.
Okay. All right. So burn multiple, any others, or is that the primary focus?
That's the primary one.
Okay.
Like, again, I'm big on capital efficiency. So we look at our CAC payback. That's in months is what we look at. We try and keep that between sort of 6 and 8 months. The obvious ones around, monthly growth. We're trying to hit 10% month on month and keep doing that for as long as we possibly can. But yeah, anything that relates to capital efficiency is probably our biggest metrics we look at.
Okay, so appreciate CAC payback, burn multiple. So appreciate that insight. And then before we wrap, so final questions, but sounds like looking for a little US expansion. So tell us, expansion can be tricky, US companies going abroad, outside, coming into the US. So tell us a little bit about your US expansion plans.
For sure. So what we have done is we've chatted with a lot of businesses, whether they're Australian or from outside of the US and elsewhere, about launching in the US and what they did. Everyone tells you it's harder than you think. Everyone tells you it's more expensive than you think. And so we're going into it with our eyes wide open. And basically the strategy is, we have got a couple of people on the ground. They're in the sales department, but really what their job is for the first quarter is about product market fit. It's about taking the current product that we have built. Where does it resonate the most? What do we need to change? And then we want to hone in on a specific market. So not taking that really broad set of customers that I told you about before that we've got in our home market, honing in on a really tightly defined ICP, picking a geography or a couple of geographies that we're going to go after just to get our traction, get our first 40 or 50 customers, get things growing, learn before scaling up and putting too much money into it, the market. So that's how we're approaching it. Basically, step by step, we're not going to take our foot off the gas, but we also don't want to go and just try and launch in all 50 states, in all markets. I think that's a good way to lose a lot of money.
Yeah, so not just sell first, but just figure out product market fit locally. And then so it sounds like some sales folks in the US, and with those, are these contractors? Did you hire them on employees right away or go through some sort of, hiring site?
Yeah, so ahead of having, we don't even have our US entity set up yet. We're still doing that at the moment. We're actually using an employer of record. So we use a HR platform called Rippling. I'm not getting sponsored to say this, but it is a great platform that we're really enjoying. So if they have an employer of record, we're using that to hire our US employees, but we've got everything going in the background. We're setting up the entity and getting things set up over there.
Yep, definitely aware of Rippling. And I was just curious because there are a lot of software platforms out there that just help you get going fast and be compliant and not trip up any local labor laws. So appreciate that insight. So Matt, as we wrap up, so we've got US expansion coming up. What's coming up next in addition to that for BuildPass?
Yeah, so we're doubling down on AI development. We're making the current platform more efficient with AI. We've got some really exciting modules coming out as well that if you follow us on LinkedIn, you'll hopefully see them coming out soon. Outside of that, we still have a lot of work to do in our home market. So it's accelerating the go-to-market here. It's probably by our count only 3% saturated. So we've got a lot of work to do and a lot of revenue to gain in our home market. So basically, the three focuses for us is accelerating go-to-market in our home market, AI development, and then launching in the US.
Okay, so a lot of good stuff coming up. So we'll keep an eye on that. So Matt, really appreciate your time sharing your journey. If listeners would like to learn more, where should we send them online?
Yeah, buildpass.ai. You can jump on there, reach out to me anytime on LinkedIn, or you can follow us, buildpass_ at Instagram.
Perfect. So if you'd like to learn more, check out buildpass.ai. And again, Matt, appreciate you sharing your journey.
No worries. Good to chat. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.